Record. So let me start again. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Jack Orree. In case you don't know me or have never spoken to me before, I am a queer, defiant, unapologetic author who writes books that challenge the systems that keep us stuck, that challenge trauma narratives, that challenge everything that makes us less than what we should be. Um, and today I wanted to come on to show you my new website, my new and improved website, also my Substack, and tell you about what's coming up, why this is so important to me, and what it is that I am doing. Um, and before we start, I just wanted to say, I live in the US and this has been a very difficult time, as most of you probably know. Um, and I almost didn't do this live today because of what happened in LA over the weekend, but then I decided that I wanted to go ahead and do it because what I stand for is standing up to this kind of crap. So for me, I'm not somebody who's on the front lines of the protests, but I am somebody who is protesting via writing, via stories, showing people that there are ways to fight back, showing people that this does not have to be the way life is, and standing up and telling truths that make people uncomfortable. So I did want to say that. And I wanted to encourage you, whether you are watching live or you are watching on replay, please feel free to step in the comments. I want to hear from you. I want to know what you think. I want to know who you are, what you like to read, what you want, if you're a writer, what you write, why you're here today, all that good stuff. I'm really looking forward to connecting with people. So now, without further ado, I am going to um share my screen once I find the right thing on here. Here we go. Okay. Yes, Zoom, I want you to be able to access my screen. That's why I hit share the screen. Okay, now, anyway, so this is my new website that I'm super excited about. As I said, this is this website is me deciding that I am not going to hide anymore. I have been a person who wanted to be a writer and wanted to be an advocate and wanted to change things for years and years and years. Probably, well, writing my whole life. I started writing when I was 6 or 7, and I wanted to be a writer, but it was before the internet revolution, so there was some truth in those days to the idea that writers have to have a second job, that you can't just write, you can't make a living at it unless you're very lucky. That's not the case anymore today, but I've had a lot of outdated thinking that I threw out when I also redid my website. And so this website is my declaration to the world that this is who I am, this is what I stand for, this is what I'm doing. As many of you know, I work in entertainment journalism, which is something that I still do today. Um, I write for sites like TV Fanatic and Screen Rant about the way mental health issues and trauma are portrayed in popular television shows. I especially love writing about Law and Order SVU, and I'm really grateful that TV Fanatic in particular has given me that opportunity. And that's one of the things I do. But my passion is for writing novels, screenplays, um, what have you. And in the past, I've pretty much given up on that idea and been focused only on coaching. You'll notice one of the first things you'll notice about my website if you've been here before is that I've removed the coaching tab that replaced it with This Is Not a Confession, which is a project I'm super excited about. That I'll tell you about in a little bit. Um, and the reason for that is because I was going into coaching as a way of hiding from what my purpose was. It's not that I don't also like helping other writers because I do, but I have struggled most of my adult life with, do I teach or do I write? And with this idea of you can't make money writing. And unfortunately, it's an idea that is outdated that I think a lot of people still have, including a lot of people who are in the business coaching models who um tend to see, a lot of people tend to see books as something that you use to, what's the word? to augment your coaching. And like coaching is where the money's at. And I don't want to coach just for money. I will on occasion help a writer who is struggling, whose work I believe in. If that's you and if that's something that you want, feel free to DM me. I haven't completely given up, although I only have one or two slots, and um prices for that start at about $400 a session, or 1,200 for the month. But that's something that the shift I've made is that's secondary to what I'm doing, because what's important for me is writing these stories, advocating for real people through fiction, and telling truths that make some people uncomfortable. Um, One of the books that I most clearly remember reading as a kid when I was very young, probably 7 or 8, is The Day They Came to Arrest the Book by Nathaniel somebody. I forgot his last name. I'll have to look it up later. And this book was about censorship. It was about a high school where the kids were offended by the racial slur in Huckleberry Finn and were starting a petition to have it banned from the school. And other kids were against that idea. And the whole theme of the book is that by censoring uncomfortable ideas, we don't make them go away. We just make them go underground so nobody can deal with the ugliness and the racism and the hatred and all things like that if those ideas are erased so that we can't see them for what they are and combat them. And I think that's a really important point. And I have always wanted to write the kinds of books that people want to censor, not because I'm being offensive to people on purpose, but because I'm saying things that make some people uncomfortable, and I'm sharing my whole authentic self in everything I write. And that's where I am with my career as a writer. Is this kind of writing comes first. I'm 47 years old now. I've wanted to do this since I was 7. 40 years is enough time to wait. So I'm going to be doing what I'm doing now, which is putting the writing first and writing stories that both entertain and educate and make people think. You'll notice I have trigger warnings all over my site. This is something that some writers find controversial, and I don't really understand why. But I write for people who are dealing with trauma, and honestly, right now, that's everybody in the whole United States because we're in the middle of a national trauma. Um, but I don't want to re-traumatize people. That's not why I do what I do. I do what I do because I want to tell truths that are important, and I also want to support my communities. So you'll see this big trigger warning. I write bold, justice-driven fiction that refuses to stay silent, which means my stories often explore topics like sexual violence, addiction, systemic injustice, and grief. And that means that every book page on this site will include content warnings. And like I said, for some people, that's a deal breaker. They don't, especially in the mystery space, which I write mysteries and thrillers. A lot of people think that somehow it spoils the book to know that there's triggering content. So sorry, but that's not the case. I'd rather somebody's experience be spoiled by learning something they didn't want to learn than by being unable to function because they were triggered. Um, so I do want to show you my brand new books page as well. But let me not get ahead of myself. Okay, well, I guess I already loaded the books page. Back to the home page, and then I'll come right back to this, I promise, because I'm neurodivergent, and sometimes the way that affects me is that my brain jumps from one topic to another, and I have to keep myself in check a lot and be like, stay on topic. So that's what just happened. Um, I did want to show you what's on the homepage so you get somewhat of an idea besides this, and I will be talking about Theater with Justice, which is my book series, and also soon will be a game that you will be able to play on your computer or phone. That's another project I'm developing right now, that I'm really excited about. Okay, so this is gonna be updated recently. Right now, my featured book is Poison in the System, which just came out. This is Brianna, and she, as you can see on here, I'm not gonna read it to you. You can look at my site yourself for that, authorjackoree.com. But you can see from this that Brianna is in a group home for girls who have been convicted of misdemeanors. Less when this is based on the real juvenile justice system in New York, which is one of the things I'm passionate about reforming. In New York, when a person under the age of 17, I believe, is arrested, they go through a whole process where they see a probation officer first, and it's decided whether or not their case will proceed to court or whether they'll be on an informal probation for 60 to 120 days. And once they go through that whole process, one of the possibilities is that they are sent to a group home as an alternative to juvenile detention, which is run by ACS. Which is the New York equivalent of what you might know as CPS, Child Protective Services, if you're in another state. Um, and so Brianna is in the group home is fictional. The concept of these kinds of group homes are not. She's in this kind of home um, after being arrested for drug possession because of drugs that a friend left in her car. And the story is really about her emotional addiction to the person who caused this problem. But it's also a mystery where a girl in the home is poisoned and she decides she's going to find out who did it, but the people administering the home don't want her to do that, and they have the power to make life very difficult for her, and even get her expelled and remanded to juvenile detention, which would destroy her chance at a future, the second, and make things a lot worse for her. So that's what that's about, and it's something I'm really excited about, and hope that you guys are going to want to read because, like I said, I'm really passionate about criminal justice reform in general, but especially juvenile justice. Um, the juvenile justice system is supposed to be set up to give kids second chances and not treat them like adults, but it doesn't really work that way. And a lot of what happens with the system is really not right. So it's something that I'm definitely um working off that, and with my TV series, This Is Not a Confession. I'm super excited about this. I've been working on this, and soon I'm going to be making my series Bible and other pitch materials and start querying, and we'll see what happens with that. But I'm really hoping that this gets made into a series. This is I also am going to be writing a novel version of it later on, which will be a fictional memoir written by Becca. Becca in the story is her looking back 15 years after she was falsely charged with the murder of her best friend at the age of 15, and looking at what happened then and also at the residual effects and how she's been ostracized despite being exonerated, and how lies that were told about her persist. Oh, and you've probably seen those of my posts about Becca if you follow me on Facebook, because I've been talking about her almost nonstop. I'm really excited about this story. It's the most powerful thing I've written so far. It, one of the reasons I use the falsely accused trope a lot in my mysteries. Um, and I feel like the trope is an important trope, but it also, just like in Reinventing Hannah, I addressed the idea that the story doesn't end when you tell someone what happened to you, and wrote the story of a girl who did tell and what happened as a result. In This Is Not a Confession, it doesn't end when she's finally exonerated after she's been arrested and she's been labeled as guilty by the news media, and she's been treated like she's guilty. And even when they find the real killer, and there's evidence, strong evidence, most of the town still believes that she got away with murder. And so this story is the story of her reclaiming her life and telling the story of the trauma that happened to her. And I want to be clear, it's not just her trauma, obviously. Her best friend is murdered, and her best friend happens to be black. And so I'm being very careful as I write this to make sure to center both their pain, because I don't want it to be, let's center the white girl who was accused at the expense of the black girl who actually lost her life. But I also want to tell the story of the way the justice system and the media and the police and everybody center in on the wrong person and how that's not justice for her friend Simone either. That's not justice to punish the wrong person without even trying to find out what really happened. Um, so again, this is something that's really important. And it's also a very ambitious project. I don't usually do time jumps and that kind of thing. I like to tell stories in linear because that's the way my brain works. But this one will jump all over time. It'll we won't see Becca until the end as an adult, but she'll be narrating, and we'll have flash forwards of some things that are happening to other characters, in the future. And I think it's going to be awesome. And I hope that you are as excited about it as I am. This announcement about subscribing is on every one of my pages because it's that important. You'll see that this is what I made for it. I kind of did like an imitation Netflix page thing, like when you go to a show on Netflix or any of the other streaming sites and you open it gives you this thing where you click on episodes and stuff instead. I made a similar kind of thing here. And I really encourage you to subscribe to my Substack, Theater with Justice, because that is where you will get teasers. You will learn more about this project, about other projects, everything I'm doing. Um, whoops, not what I meant to do. And that's really important. You can learn more about me, learn more about some of my other projects. We have Reinventing Hannah on here. And this is just the homepage. I'm gonna skip the about page for now because it's just my biography, and if you want to contact me, you can contact me through there. And if you want to interview me on your podcast, I have a full press page set up here. But I want to show you some other things. And by the way, if you are putting comments on Facebook, don't feel like I'm ignoring you. I just can't see the comments right now because I'm sharing my screen and I want to keep the screen shared and not flip over to Facebook. I will check them before the live ends, and if you have said something, I will respond to you. Um, so I'm also really excited about the newest book that I'm writing, Her Sacred Oath. This is my first adult thriller, and it's coming in July, just a little over a month, and a couple of days after my birthday. So, this is on the surface a stalking story, which is very something that happens in a lot of thrillers, right? It's about a medical resident. Well, she's a cardiological fellow, which is the last step before she becomes a full doctor. Um, and she's being stalked, but there's a lot more to it than that. So somebody has a very specific reason for wanting her either in jail or dead, but she is not going to give them the satisfaction. She's already a trauma survivor. Jillian is been through it all. She's survived severe domestic violence. She thinks that she's gotten her life together now because now she's um no, she's sober now. She was an alcoholic. She's an alcoholic who was drinking a lot after she first left her abusive ex, and now she's sober. She's got a husband she's in love with. She's got a baby on the way, and all of a sudden, all these weird things are happening, and it's clear someone is watching her, someone is following her, someone's messing with her, and then one of her colleagues ends up dead, and it's clear that she's being framed. So this is about somebody who people are trying to break, who refuses to be broken, and who is going to find out what's going on, get to the bottom of it, and risk everything to make sure it stops. And along the way, she's going to learn some things about herself that she didn't know before, and it's going to really turn everything upside down and make her question whether her perfect marriage is what what she thinks it is. Um, this has been a project that's been a long-term project. If you've been with me for a while, then you remember that I was writing a book called Heart Failure. That was the first iteration of this. It's a lot stronger now, and I'm hoping that soon I'm going to be able to have beta readers read it. I'm working on finishing up the draft now. Um, it is on Amazon, so if you happen to go to the site and you click on this, you can pre-order it. And I'm super, super excited about it. As you can see, This book involves stalking of members of domestic violence and sexual assault. As usual, it's not graphic. Um, this is my main general book page where you can see that I've got what I've got going on so far, and you can click on each one of them to go to the page for it. Um, so, for example, if you were to go to the For Sacred Oath page, you see that banner again, and you can click if you want to know more about the triggers besides this general warning. You can click here. It tells you specifically what you'll find inside that might be triggering. Obviously, like everybody else, I can't be inside everyone's head, so I can't know for sure what everybody is triggered by, but I did my best to list things that are fairly obvious triggers. You have an about page here. For this particular book, I happen to have an excerpt that's on my Substack, cedarwoodjustice.substack.com. So you get a few lines here, and then you click here, go to Substack to read the rest. I don't have reviews yet because the book's not published. I'm not at the point where I'm seeking reviews. But if you are someone who's interested in getting a free copy to review later, you can email me right here. So that's that. And it's the same it's pretty much the same format for all my other books. I'm not gonna go through all of them, except for I do want to show you Reinventing Hannah because one of the things that people sometimes wonder is, well, how come Reinventing Hannah is not a mystery? How does it connect to the rest of your books? And it's true, it's not a mystery. Reinventing Hannah is about a 16-year-old girl who, after she is sexually assaulted, refuses to stay silent and refuses to be anything less than who she is and do less than what she wants after years of being silent and people pleasing and being the girl everyone wanted her to be. Um, and I already know that a lot of you have read it already. A lot of you have got a value out of it, but it's it is connected to the other books because it's the same themes, even if it's not a mystery, and it takes place in Cedarwood just like the other books do. Um, so here you have a real excerpt. I might put that on Substack later. And you have Amazon reviews here because there are enough reviews for me to be able to put that. So if you haven't read it yet, definitely check it out. I have other books out here. I'm not going to go through every book because that'll take too long. But the only one I have not introduced you to is Open Secrets. So I guess I will. I take that back what I said a minute ago. I will show you Open Secrets. Um, this is my first mystery, and CJ is a trans-masculine non-binary protagonist. I learned the word trans-mask recently after I published it, but it's definitely the way that describes them because they don't identify strictly female or male, but they feel more male than female, and they prefer more traditionally male expressions. Um, and like Brianna, CJ is a survivor who is going to risk everything to find the truth. In their case, it's because they know what it's like to be silenced. They know what it's like not to be kept taken seriously after a traumatic event when they go to the police and nothing happens or they're blamed for it. And this murder victim had a secret that they were trying to expose, and they don't want to allow that story to die with the victim. So they will do whatever it takes um, to do that. And reviews are coming. But again, you can download the entire first chapter for free. You go here to excerpt and then click on read more, and it'll take you to my BookFunnel page. Oh, looks like it's not working. I guess I'll have to fix that before um as soon as we get off the call, I'll fix that so I can't show it to you right now because it's not working at the moment. But I will fix that link. Sorry about that. Again, this is not a confession. It's really important, and I'm also really proud of the page. I didn't kill someone with a line out, so line out. I really love that. I had fun making these headers inside police tape. to explain to you more about what it is, and who it's about and why it's important. And I've talked about a lot of that. But again, this is my ultimate project on criminal justice reform and on what happens when a young person is accused of a heinous crime and they cannot escape that accusation. Um, and it takes place in Cedarwood, which is a fictional Long Island suburb. And that's why I put this little thing here to show that it looks so nice and peaceful, but Cedarwood is anything but because all these crimes I write about happen here. And again, you can get to my book pages from there if you're interested. Um, the last thing is my resource room. I want to show you what resources I have coming up and talk about something really exciting. And then I'm going to show you real quick my Cedarwood Justice blog on Substack and talk about that. So, as you can see, as I told you before, the first, let's see if this one works. There we go. The first thing you see is that I've got a free chapter of Open Secrets for you. You can get the chapter by going here. You don't even need to put in your email address or anything. You can read it in your browser. You can get it on your Kindle or whatever you use. So that's the first resource I have, but I have a lot of resources. Some of them are ready, some of them are coming up, and I want to talk to you about them. So, as I already mentioned, Open Secrets, the next thing I'm working on is a free guide for how to evaluate trigger warnings. Because a lot of times, one of the reasons that trigger warnings get a bad rap is that people read them, then they read the story, then they're angry that they got triggered. And I've also heard people say trigger warnings are unnecessary and stupid because they don't stop people from getting triggered. That is not the point. It's not a magic pill that you read. Oh, this book contains references to this. Now I'm protected and I can read this without being traumatized. That's not how it works. Trigger warnings are about this is what's in the book. Now it's up to you to make a decision whether you feel comfortable with this, whether you feel it might traumatize you, whether you feel it's something that you want to try to read now or something you don't want to read. And either choice is valid, but it is up to you. But I don't think it's anything nefarious, right? It's not that people are like, oh, I'm 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 going to read these trigger warnings and ignore them and then be angry on purpose. No one is doing that. A lot of people, I think, don't know how to take that step from, okay, this is what's in the book to how do I know it's for me? And so I am working on a guide to help you. And I'm hoping that that will be available by next month so that you can make these informed decisions. And I have a lot of other things in development as well. So for readers out for writers, this is the thing I'm most excited about. You Be the Judge, which I think I'm gonna change the title of just Cedarwood Justice the game because it has evolved beyond just You Be the Judge, which was my original idea. But it is going to be the ultimate juvenile justice game that shows you, while entertaining you, how biased the system is, how messed up the system is, how hurtful the system is, especially to people who are neurodivergent, people who are not white, people who are not straight, people who are not cisgender, basically anyone who's marginalized. So at this point, I'm still in the planning stages of this game. I will let you know when it's released, but I'm so excited about it because I've set up a whole system where you can play one of three characters right now, and the first three cases are low-level cases, which will be free, and then will be able to purchase the full app in order to get access to newer and more complicated cases. And basically, it's a choice-based game where you play one of the characters from one of my books, one of which is Vicky, who is one of my most popular characters. We first meet her in Open Secret at the age of 11, when she is a black autistic girl who has a keen interest in forensic in criminal forensics. And She also is very justice oriented and very creative, and she is a character that I get comments all the time that they love this character. And the good news is you can see more of her in a lot of my books. She's going to be well, you don't see her in Poison in the System, but she's Brianna's cousin. She's mentioned several times. Um, she will be a very important character. This is not a confession because she is Becca's best friend, and we will learn about what happens to her in the future. It's not all happy. Um, but I can promise you that she does not die and she will survive and thrive. And what was I saying? In this particular game, there are some other books that I'm writing that can have Vicky as well, by the way. But those are ideas that are so undeveloped yet that they're underdeveloped, so I don't want to talk about them yet. So you'll have to wait for my next live for that. But Vicky in this game is based on something that happens, and this is not a confession, where Becca and Vicky are in the library, and Becca wants to protest against the library policy that certain books are not accessible by children who are under the age of 16. And when the librarian tells her not to put a book back because she's too young for it, she rips a page out of the book. And in the original story, Vicky narrowly avoids arrest when she hides the book in her backpack because she doesn't want Becca to get in trouble, and then later claims that she did it on purpose to help the protest, which she might or might not have. You'll have to read or watch when it comes out to see. But in the game, this incident does lead to her arrest for the purpose of exploring the juvenile justice system. It's a choice-based game with some wrinkles. One wrinkle is that all choices are not equal. There are certain choices that you can make. There are certain parts of the game. It's an interactive story where certain parts of the game you have three choices, three paths you can take, but there will be a choice that Vicky prefers, and you have to do some work to try to get her to do something else if that's not the choice that you prefer. Um, there are also there's also a bias score, a bias system that she has to overcome with hidden scores so that the people she interacts with in the system are biased against her because of her race and her neurodivergence. And you're basically making choices to try to move through this process and hopefully get her out of trouble by the end of the game, which is something that's not guaranteed. Um, she's one of three characters that you can play as. I also have Elizabeth, who is a side character in Poison the System, who's also autistic. And it's a story of how she ended up in the group home. Um, but she may not suffer the same fate in the game depending on the choices that you make. After she's arrested for shoplifting. And I have a third character, Xavier. Xavier is a um Latino trans boy who is stopped for suspicious behavior and then arrested for theft. And when playing his game, there's also issues related to gender dysphoria and how transgender people are treated in the system. Um, in addition to the actual issue that the legal issue that he faces. So whichever ones you play all of them, and they're not sequential. You can play them in any order, but when you finish one, it will affect gameplay in the others. The others will hear about it about the case, and there will be also developing parts about how the media gets involved, how schools get involved, all that kind of stuff. So this is something I'm really excited about. It's a new way of kind of an interactive companion to what I'm doing with my books, with the TV show. I'm interested now in spreading my message through all media, talking for fairness, equality, criminal justice reform, stopping a lot of the crap that's going on now, trans communities, other communities, and I'm spreading my message beyond that is the importance of speaking up, the refusal to stay silent, and trying to show these people as normal kids who are facing things that are abnormal, and unfair, and in some cases, like Jillian's case, normal adults who are against crazy odds. Um, so this is something to look out for. I'll have more information about that soon. I can't wait for you to hear more about it. I also am uh I also am offering some resources. Uh I'm going to be offering Finish Your Book Fast with Plotter and GPT. And I want to make it clear I am not one of those authors who thinks you're not a writer if you use ChatGPT or any other AI. I do think it needs to be used correctly. There are ways to use it that are not helpful to you as an author, and there are ways to use it that are helpful. Um, and I will go into that in these. And this particular guide uses Plotter, which is a plot development tool that I find very helpful, and ChatGPT together to help you get chapters written faster, get your book done. So that is a resource to look out for that will be ready soon. I also am working on a printable toolkit for neurodivergent writers to help with the planning process, and I'll go even more deeply into Plotter and why you should plan and how you should plan. And by the way, if you're a pantser like me, which means somebody who likes to make up as you go along, having a structure to have a lot of freedom within it to make up what you want is really helpful and stops me from going in through a maze and getting lost and hitting dead ends and taking a year to write a first draft. Um, there are also some things coming soon, not here yet, but these are resources that you will be able to pay for soon. So I'd love to hear what you think about them. Uh, there's a digital writing guide, which is basically this guide is about how to tell stories that no one else will, how to tell your story, your to speak about trauma, to speak about justice, to speak about the kinds of things that people do not usually talk about and which get overlooked. And this is going to be a guide to how to do it in a trauma informed way, not just for your readers to the point, but for yourself, so that you don't hurt yourself while trying to write these stories. And I will also be offering for sale a printable toolkit, which is uh got grounding exercises, strategies for avoiding burnout, how to get your book finished. And as I said earlier, there will be extra games, extra cases to go along with the Cedarwood Justice game I just told you about, and that definitely will be a paid offer. Um, so the last thing I want to show you is Cedarwood Justice, which is right here. This is you can see my note that I wrote about how I'm coming live today. Um, I've written several things for this so far. I suggest that if you want let me start again. Cedarwood Justice, the blog, the Substack, is my writing blog and mailing list. So this is where I talk about things like teasers, like this is not a confession. I have a teaser here. I talk about aspects of the books that I'm writing. I also talk here I have an excerpt with Jillian from what do you call it? From her sacred oath. I have discussions of my own writing process and thoughts I have, like an editorial that I wrote about how I was encouraged not to allow Vicky to read way above grade level because that's considered an autism stereotype. And it also happens to be how I was as a child and I'm autistic, and talking about all sorts of things and how it's important to me to realize there are differences between Vicky as a black autistic child and me as a white autistic child person, but that reading level is not one of them. Um, when you subscribe, I recommend you start here with Welcome to Cedarwood Justice, which talks about this is not a confession, and also why I write what I write. Welcoming you to the Substack. Uh, talking about free versus paid, because this blog is free. You can upgrade to paid. If you do, it's $5 a month. You'll get some bonus blogs and early access to some stories. and you'll also be supporting this important work that I'm doing. So now I'm just gonna, my computer is almost dying and it's been 40 minutes. So I just want to check if there have been any comments. Let me see. I see that there are people who have been here and reacted. And I do see there are a couple of comments here. Let me see if I can read them. This is so important to me and what it is that I am doing. Okay, so let me mute that so that you don't get the. Oh, Deborah, I'm glad that you enjoyed it and that it was inspiring. Thank you so much for being here. Everybody else, if you are not watching live, I look forward to seeing you on the replay. And next time I do a live, I will replace this because this is my old newsletter. My new one is the blog that I just gave you on Substack. So thank you very much, everybody. I really enjoyed talking with you all. Looking forward to getting to know you more as well. And I will talk to you later.